Hiya folks, it's Brad. I am in Germany now, in Munich, and later today I will be heading out to Domizilium, which is a retreat center. I believe it's north. It's very near Munich. I don't know if it's north, south, east, or west. I always imagine it's north. We'll be doing a 4 or 5 day retreat, depending on if you're an optimist or a pessimist, if you count the first and last days. Anyway, it's a longish one. So I'll be doing that, and I'm not sure if I'll be doing any videos or blogging from there. I don't think they have the internet. And then I will head from there to Nijmegen in the Netherlands, and then to England, Hebden Bridge, and London. So all of these events are open to anybody who wants to join, so please join up. See the Brad in person while you still can in Europe, and I'll have a list of places I'll be at the end of this video. So, been here in Europe for a couple of weeks now, I think. Has it been 2 weeks? Something like that. And I think I've gotten into 3 or maybe even 4 conversations about quantum physics and what it means to Zen. It seems like it's really popular for people to get into the science of Buddhism these days, and there are tons of books about it. And people kind of ask me, well, why don't you talk about that? And I'll tell you why I don't talk about that, not at least not very much. It's it kind of all goes back to a conversation I had with Tim McCarthy, my first Zen teacher, when I was first starting out with Zazen, and I was like everybody is these days, interested in this whole science and Zen thing. And a book had been out for a few years by then called The Tao of Physics, or the Tao of Physics, if you want to pronounce it that way. And Tim was talking about a time when he was I believe he was a religious studies, he was getting his PhD in some religious studies or philosophy, I don't remember. And of course interested in Zen and doing Zen. And a friend of his was similarly doing a PhD in some area of the sciences. I don't know if it was physics or something else. But they'd both gotten hold of the Tao of Physics. And Tim's friend said to him, "Oh, this book is interesting. The guy seems to know a lot about Eastern religion, but he doesn't understand physics at all." And Tim told his friend he had exactly the opposite impression. He'd read the book and he thought the author knew a lot about physics but didn't understand Eastern religions at all. So that's kind of what you get in these arguments. I don't know if they're arguments, but in these kind of conversations, they're talking past each other a little bit. I was reading at the time, I think, a book called Space, Time, and Beyond. Well, I must have read it before then, because I remember buying it in high school, when I was in high school, like a Walden Books in the mall. And I thought it was really cool. It's out of print now, but it was written in the format of a children's book, but it was obviously aimed at adults. And it was trying to explain some of the current understandings of quantum physics as they were in the early 1980s, and relating them extensively to Eastern spirituality and existentialism and philosophies like that. And when I see that stuff, I can get excited about it too, because it does kind of seem like there's a movement, or there's a tendency in physics these days for people to get into areas that really have traditionally only Buddhists have spoken about these things. The idea of the way the mind is intertwined with physical reality. I think one of the problems that might be holding a lot of the physicists back in understanding all of this is, I think most of us are trained to believe that mind is the possession of a person or a being of some sort. So I have my mind, you have your mind, Donald Trump has his mind, Barack Obama has his mind, whatever. All of these people have their individual minds, and the only way you can sort of conceive of a universal mind is like God, and God being conceived of as another individual with another individual mind. So there are all these individuals with individual minds, and God has his super mind, over there, but he's still an individual with his own mind. And that's, I think, the mistake. The mistake is thinking that mind is the possession of a me. Like there's a me who possesses mind. And this, a lot of Buddhists refute this idea. And really, if you do a Zazen practice long enough, you're going to encounter this, where you're going to see that the whole idea of an I, in quotes, who observes or possesses or experiences mind makes no sense. The separation of the I and the mind, me looking at my mind, well then what am I if I'm looking at my mind? It gets very, weird and unanswerable at some point. So the idea that mind has to be possessed by something is the problem. So these ideas that I don't know, individual particles don't exist in any fixed point until there's an observer observing them, and then people go, well, how does the observer influence that? Because they imagine the observer is a thing inside here that somehow goes, and that seems impossible. But I think really it takes a kind of a leap of understanding that the mind or mind is not possessed by anyone. And it's not my mind any more than it's anybody else's mind. That's the hurdle that we're trying to get through. But then again, even what I just said just now is dumbass speculation based on a guy who when I was in the Czech Republic, it was 25 Czech crowns to a euro, and I couldn't even make that math work out. Like, that's the easiest math in the world. If it's 25 equals 1, there's got to be some really quick calculation you can make, but I was there for 4 days and couldn't figure it out. So, yeah, I kept having to use my little calculator app on my phone. So, if I can't even get that much math together, I certainly can't get it together to understand quantum physics. So any comment I could make about quantum physics, if somebody who really studies quantum physics looks at it, they're going to go, oh, that guy's stupid. So, there you go. That's why I don't really get into it. But, like a lot of people, I find it fascinating that it's going in this direction. And I think it does say something for the profundity of the truth that Buddhists have been working on for the last 20 centuries. Is it 20 centuries? Yeah, I think it's 20 centuries, 25 centuries. Anyway, there you go. That's what I wanted to say for today, a little thing about that. So here are the places I will be in Europe. There's still a few of these dates left. All of these events are open to everybody who wants to come, so please show up. And more information will be available at hardcorezen.info/events. And I want to tell you about the podcast that I'm going to be starting work on. Actually, I'm going to start doing maybe a few episodes here in Europe. Stay tuned. I may do an episode of the podcast in Nijmegen, and I may do one in London, unbeknownst to the people who organize those events. That's why I'm saying maybe, because I got to contact them and make sure it's okay. But I'm going to be doing this podcast. I hope to debut it sometime around the time that my new book, Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen, comes out, and it will be called Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen, the podcast. Maybe I'll just, anyway, it'll have the same title as the book. And that'll be coming, I hope we'll get it out in October. And so look for that, and I'll announce more when I have more to announce. And I hope to take this on the road one of these days, go to places and do a podcast of Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen in your town. It may be a way that I can travel and do lectures without going broke. So might do that. We'll see. Although I said I want to limit my travel, so I'm not going to be doing this full time. But it may be a thing that I'll do. So that's it. That's the announcements. That's the thing I wanted to say. See you later. I'm going to go out and have some fun in Munich before I have to go ensconce myself in a retreat. So catch you later.